All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're exploring a pretty complex worldview that's been gaining a lot of traction. It connects massive wealth, global power, and, the rise of artificial intelligence. Now, our goal here isn't to say if this is right or wrong, but to really get into the logic of the argument itself, based on our source material. So let's start with the one question that this entire worldview is built around.
And this question right here is really the heart of the whole thing. The idea is that something massive has shifted the balance of power, giving the folks at the very, very top a kind of confidence we've never seen before. To understand why, we've got to look at where their power comes from in the first place.
So, where does this all start? Well, the theory kicks off with a pretty bold idea, that our world is basically run by an incredibly small, interconnected global elite. But how could that even be possible? How is that control built and maintained? According to the theory, it all starts with one thing: money.
Now, just look at the scale of this. According to this worldview, the fact that a tiny, tiny fraction of people holds almost half of all the money on the planet, well, that's not just some random economic stat. It's the very foundation of their power. This financial dominance is the engine that drives literally everything else.
So how does all that cash turn into actual control? Well, the thinking goes that it allows this elite to pull the levers on the most important pillars of our society. We're talking about everything from shaping laws and political campaigns to controlling the stories we see in the media and steering giant global economic institutions. And get this, according to this worldview, this power isn't something they just keep in their back pocket. Nope, they actually show it off in very public ways.
This brings us to a really unique part of the theory, its take on public scandals. Instead of seeing them as embarrassing failures for the elite, this worldview flips that idea completely on its head and sees them as a calculated show of force.
Okay, so on the one hand, you've got the standard view, right? A scandal breaks, there's an investigation, and someone is held accountable. But on the other hand, you have this theory's take, that scandals, especially ones where information is carefully leaked, are actually a form of psychological warfare. It's a way of demonstrating that they are totally immune to the consequences that would crush anybody else.
And boom, that quote pretty much says it all, right? In this view, every scandal that fades away with no real consequences sends a crystal clear signal to the public. It's not a mistake, it's a message. It's a message of absolute impunity. But what gives them this new level of confidence? Well, this is where we get to the big technological turning point.
According to this theory, artificial intelligence is the absolute game changer. It's the key that unlocks everything else, because it completely rewrites the historical relationship between the powerful and the public. It severs a dependency that's been in place for centuries.
It really boils down to this simple three-step process. First, AI starts doing the high-level thinking and administrative jobs, the work of the professional class. Second, this completely removes the leverage that this entire class of workers has always had. And third, and this is the big one, the elite are no longer dependent on a huge workforce to run their systems and make them money.
Let's just break down for a second why AI is seen as the perfect tool for this. It replaces the exact kind of white-collar labor that used to be essential. It can work 24/7, no salary, no benefits, no sick days. And here's the kicker, it can't form a union, it can't go on strike, it can't resist. On top of all that, the theory argues that its development is funded and completely controlled by these same elite networks.
And all of this leads to what the theory calls the Great Uncoupling. The idea here is that for the first time in modern history, the world's economic engine just doesn't need most of the people anymore. That main source of power that regular people had, it's being taken apart piece by piece.
Okay, so to really get what's going on, we have to talk about this idea of labor leverage. Now, we're not just talking about manual labor here. This is about the power that the educated, professional classes have always had. The people you need to run the banks, write the code, manage the supply chains, and analyze the data. Their skills were absolutely essential, and that gave them a real seat at the table.
And this is exactly where AI strikes. By automating those exact fields, the theory claims that this leverage is basically vanishing into thin air. The middle class, which was once indispensable, is, in this view, becoming completely dispensable. And that leads to the theory's ultimate conclusion, a totally new social order. So what does this new world look like? Well, the theory paints a picture of a new social structure, one that's sharply divided between the people who own the AI and the automated systems and everybody else.
And this chart, wow, it really hammers home the end game that this theory is talking about. You have this tiny, ultra-protected sovereign elite living in one world, and then this huge population with very little real power or purpose living in another.
The gap isn't just about money anymore, it's about your fundamental relevance to the system itself.
So what would life actually be like for most people in this future? The theory points to things like widespread chronic unemployment, a dependency on bare-bones welfare systems designed more for control than for comfort, and almost no chance for social mobility. And power wouldn't be maintained just by force, but by controlling data and shaping what people believe.
And this might be the most chilling prediction of all. The whole concept of universal human rights is seen as just a temporary phase, an arrangement that was useful back when the elite needed the masses to work for them. In this new system, the theory suggests that your rights could be directly tied to your wealth and how useful you are to the people in charge.
Which leaves us with this final, really critical question. For centuries, the collective power of people, of their labor, has been a fundamental check on absolute authority. If this theory is right, and AI is making that leverage obsolete, it forces us to ask, in a world without it, what's the new foundation for public power and for our individual rights? And that is a question that really sticks with you.